Hello, everyone. It's Pedro here, and today I wanted to talk about something that, unfortunately, there's not a lot of people talking about this, although it becomes more and more prevalent, which has to do with, I can say, or I can characterize this as the dark side of entrepreneurship. And I know that a lot of people suffer this in silence, and I've been there myself, so that's why I wanted to talk to you from personal experience as well. And what happens is, in the disconnect here is, we hear, and probably you heard that too, that you build a business to achieve happiness, which is directly related with freedom and all those good things that sound really good, right? And they are true to a certain extent. But at the same time, the disconnect and the challenging part also comes when you also hear a lot of entrepreneurs dealing with anxiety, sadness, um, you know, being a very lonely journey. We've all heard that, right? And so a lot of people get confused with this, which turns into more self doubt. And if others are, saying that they have all these good things, why am I not feeling the same, right? And this has been like a very deep reflection on my part for the past year or so. And the truth is, the main culprit of all of this, in my opinion, is only one, which is comparison. Because comparison is definitely the main culprit here. And you assume that all these things that you hear on social media, especially, are like 100% true as in the way that you interpret them, right? But the true part of that equation is this: you don't know anything about what really goes behind the scenes when you hear these people talking. And that's just a reality. You don't know. You hear like these big numbers, you hear like all these, flashy things if you're into that kind of stuff. And even if you're not, even if you're not into that kind of stuff, that kind of things goes through your eyes into your brain and then feeds into perhaps a negative loop, which then turns into all these things that I just mentioned, like self-doubt, imposter syndrome, sadness, all that kind of stuff. And this is super super common. I mean, I'm not telling you anything that you haven't heard before, or perhaps that you haven't felt before. But you hear all these stories about entrepreneurship being very prone to episodes of sadness, deep sadness, and being like a very lonely journey, a very anxious journey as well at some points. And you feel that perhaps this, if I'm feeling like that, perhaps that's how I should feel, right? But that's not necessarily speaking the case. But even if it is, right, even before going there, I guess the best thing to analyze is exactly what I just mentioned, which is you don't know anything about what goes behind the scenes when you hear these people talking. First of all, you don't know it's true. Some of these things might be completely true, some of these things might be completely bullshit, but you don't know. But at the same time, you assume as like 100% true. And I think we are now witnessing a new sort of movement of people that have been on that side of like high revenue numbers and stuff like that, and they were burned out. And now they are basically choosing like a different path, which is not so much about like these crazy numbers and just like hitting numbers by the sake of it. It's really more about what does that mean to me as a human being, to me as a business owner, to me as a person, right? And so, yeah, when you are able to detach yourself from that dreamy outcome that you don't know whether or not is true, maybe you will start also adopting like different ways of perhaps pursuing that kind of stuff for your business or for your upcoming business if you're not in business. But it seems like that kind of dark side is sort of like projected as like a badge of honor. Like you need to go through those to those like dark moments. And I want to tell you that that's not necessarily speaking the only way to get to where you want to be, right? Because the main thing, as I said before, and I think this is super super important, the main thing that you need to realize is the fact that you only feel like that because of comparison. There were moments in my journey, for example, in which we were doing, very good numbers. We were very, very small team, very high profits, and we didn't know like what was the race that we were running, because we were just like running our own race and everything was fine. We were happy, I was happy. I didn't have like anything to worry about, quite the opposite, to be honest with you. But then when I start shifting my attention from myself and comparing myself to others, then something shifted. There was a shift in me, and none of what I was able to achieve that before was just fine. I was happy and everything was fine. From that moment, no matter what was that I was accomplishing, it never felt like it never really landed in the way that it landed before. And that's super, super confusing. And I've done, 30K days, 40K days, 50K days. And still, when I've entered into this loop of comparing myself to others, something felt off, and that's a very horrible place to be honest with you, from personal experience. So that's why I wanted to record this video, exactly because of that reason. And there's a lot of bullshit out there as well. That's just the reality of it. And bullshit, I'm not saying that it's not to be believed that those numbers can be achieved, because I truly know that those numbers can be achieved. But what I'm talking about, like bullshit, is that even the bullshit that your mind is telling to yourself, that everything is perfect if you get to those numbers, right? And it might not be the case at all. It might not be the case at all. You know, depending on how you have your setup, you have your business set up. Like hitting like, say, 100K a month revenue wise, it might not mean much to you if you have, like, for example, a big team, right? Because you have all these, mouths to feed, right? But it can be a very good business as well, even more than that, so what I'm saying is, you don't ever assume that just because someone is saying those numbers that everything is perfect, because your life might be even more perfect than theirs, depending of what that feels to you, without even going on the comparison loop, because you said that there will always be someone ahead of you, independently of how much you reach. And that's a very strange place to be, as I said before. And the thing I think it's important to realize is that revenue does not equate to happiness, and happiness does not equate to profit, and profit doesn't equate to all of that kind of stuff. Is sort of like a loop, right? So don't ever assume that just because someone you think that is ahead of you, it's in a better place, mentally speaking, in comparison to where you are. So I think that's very, very, very important. Think about this. Would you prefer to have less big numbers, let's say, okay, but you have like a very good life regardless? Would you prefer that and have like a more fulfilled life, a more happier life, or the other way around? That's super important, right? Because we have like all these numbers in our minds out of pure comparison. Out of pure comparison. It's not necessarily speaking what matters for you as a human being, for your life, all your expenses that you have, even even if you have family. Think about it. But because of comparison, you go into this negative loop of, I'm not good enough. Where am I to do this? I'm just wasting my time, all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you this again, from personal experience. So the key here is to have something that that has purpose and serves the purpose for you and for the ones that you want to help with your business, because that's exactly what's going to turn into that fulfilling feeling, because that's the most important thing. And and your body will know as well when, once you reach there, because there's a natural sense of flow. Everything seems aligned, everything seems to make sense, and you don't care anymore. And that if you reach it to this stage, you don't care anymore about whether you're making 100K a month or even 10K a month, if it feels good, right? Of course, if things are not working business wise, then that's a different story, right? But I'm talking about just from the pure numbers perspective. And this is a kind of, you know um, side that most people don't talk about, because they want to project this image of hyper success, like hyper, like, oh, everything's good kind of thing, right? But the reality is, it may be true and it may not be true, and you don't know. But you eat that as the ultimate truth, when you don't know whether or not that's the case. And it doesn't matter. What matters is how that feels to you. That's the most important thing. So I think we are now, as I was saying before, we're now witnessing a sort of like a different movement of people that even, that a lot of them achieved that kind of hyper success, let's put it this way, in the past. But they are now transitioning into something that feels more aligned to themselves, to who they are as people. And this might have like different reasons of why that's the case. Maybe because of experience, of like all the years that they've been doing this in that way. Maybe because of age. Maybe because they now have a family. It might be because a number of reasons, right? It doesn't matter where it comes from. But I think we are now witnessing a new wave of how to conduct lifestyle businesses, because that's basically what we're talking about here. For the majority of these business info businesses, it's about the lifestyle business. And I think we're now witnessing this new wave, as I said before. So this video, it's really about just giving you a friendly, I would say, advice, if you will, that don't let comparison just by itself to ruin what you've been building or what you want to build. Because what you are building is true to yourself, and if it serves you and serves the ones that you are providing the service or product for, that's the most important thing. Of course, we all want to scale. Of course, we all want to get better at what we do, all of that kind of stuff. But the key question here is, how much do you want to do that, and at what cost? Because if it costs everything else, then it might not be such a good trade-off, right? Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is, right? So this is the type of stuff that I wanted to talk to you about today. And as I said before, I think we're witnessing a new wave on how to conduct business in this sense, without the confusion, without necessarily speaking the anxiety. I think there will always be some anxiety, because that's sort of like the nature of it. But you can have less anxiety if you are willing at least to give it a try. But if you can remove the comparison part, which in some cases it might not be that easy, but it's certainly possible. But if you are able to remove that part, I think life will smile at you in a different way, and you feel more purpose in what you're doing in a natural flow, right? And this is the way exactly how I built my business without even realizing, because there was a natural alignment and everything, felt like effortless almost, right? And you don't feel really that you're doing work, you're just having fun, or the purpose is higher than the work that it takes, and everything flows really naturally. So if you need help with this, just read the link in the description below. There's a video there. Connect with me on Instagram and let's see if I can help you. But regardless, this is actually the message. Don't compare yourself to others, because that's the main culprit on how things start to go off track, and your mind will start spinning in directions that definitely you don't want to. And you know that if you now have this in you and you didn't have that in you before, most likely there's at least an element of comparison that is going on that is ruining everything else. So I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.